Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday from Mojo and I. Say hello. Today, I am going to be doing a bit of a shorter video that talks about the process of change, because we know that things change so quickly. Like, this little guy has grown so much in the past almost 6 months. He doesn't even look the same anymore. But why am I talking about change? What does this have to do with your cat? With my cat, not that much, just because he's cute and this is a fan request to see more of my kitties of Tuna and Mojo, but specifically to BPD, because we know that change is hard. Change is especially hard when you do have BPD. The first thing that I will say on this topic is that everything changes in life, and that impermanence is actually the only constant in life, meaning that everything comes and goes, okay? And this is the same with us. We will change throughout our lives. It's normal to evolve as people, and if you're not evolving, you're not really growing. I'm also aware, though, that with folks who do have BPD, there might be more of resistance because we don't necessarily have the tools to know how to grow as people and how to manage and regulate ourselves throughout this process. And the good thing about this universal truth is that we can change, meaning that you are not stuck being the way that you are. I know that at times it can feel as though you're alone, as though you're going to be this way forever, as though no one will ever love you. That is simply not true, okay? There are actually stages of change, stages of transformation that happen in most of us when we're faced with adversity, when we're faced with something that is new. When you think about it, speaking in evolutionary terms, we are a creature of habits because they keep us alive. If we think of our ancestors exploring out in the plains and they saw something uncertain or new, it is safer not to explore than to explore, because then you could be risking death. This is the same for psychological processes with us today. When we're faced with a new alternative, even if it might be better for us, it's still scary, and we are change adverse for that reason, for evolutionary purposes. So change, according to Virginia Satir, happens in a similar model. So we have the status quo, so the way that you are now and that you have, quote, always been, you're to being how you are, to acting like you do, to thinking like you do. You think that it's normal, you think that it's okay. I used to be in that phase. And I used to attribute a lot of my suffering to external factors, not realizing that a lot of it was caused internally and that I was actually putting myself in situations that were causing me to suffer. And that was the status quo. What then happens is we often come into face-to-face with a foreign element, so something that is going to come disrupt the typical day-to-day balance, the status quo. So for you, that might be your diagnosis. That might be, for me, for example, dating someone who would call me out and would make me re-question things and made me realize that, okay, the status quo is not working anymore. It's unacceptable. Something needs to happen. So often when we're met with a challenge or something or someone that puts into question the normalcy of our lives, we then delve and fall into chaos. This is a stage where either when you first receive your diagnosis or when you first learn about BPD, it can feel overwhelming, because then the more research you start doing, the more you realize, oh my God, all the studies are saying that it's going to take 5, 10 plus years to recover, and these are all the things I need to do, and this is all the money that I need to invest, and it can be very overwhelming. And in this stage, we can take 2 steps back and 1 step forward. It can be very chaotic, and it's actually called the stage of chaos. And what needs to happen is this transformative idea or experience, and this can be at this moment acceptance. And so when we start to accept our nature and our diagnosis and how we are and behaviors and habits that we have picked up throughout the years, it's at this moment that the process of change can truly begin. Of course, it has begun. It has begun the second that we started to re-question the status quo. But I mean, deep, profound, and lasting change. If you're hearing that, that is Mojo trying to get in. But anyways, so deep and lasting, profound change happens with this defining moment, it's almost this moment of acceptance or meaning making in our suffering. So it is during this next stage of practice and integration that we really start to put the skills into practice. This is where we have accepted, or at least begun to accept, who we are, and we start to practice this new way of being, putting into practice the habits, changing the way that we act so that we can become and transform into something new. At the end of Virginia Satir's model, we have the new status quo, meaning that at the end of this process of change, you will have a new normal. And I can tell you that this process, which I have just described, is accurate. Even thinking about my own experience, there was my life as it was, there was the disrupting element of finding out that the way I had perceived the world was wrong. There is a chaotic period of me trying to figure out how to remold the model of the world and myself and where I fit into everything. There was moments of great and deep suffering and confusion. And then within those moments, there was moments of meaning making and acceptance, which helped me to strive towards changing, bettering myself, learning new skills, putting those into practice, transforming into who I am right this moment. And by the way, the process of change is ongoing. It's not because you have this new status quo that it's going to stay that way. At some point, that will become the normal status quo, and the process of change will happen over and over and over again. Just know that it's normal to have moments of chaos, to have moments of confusion, of self-doubt, even despair at times, and great suffering. Those are part of the human experience. Those are part of the journey to recovery to BPD. And this is something realistically that humans as a whole need to go through to evolve as people. And so it's not just because you have BPD that you're experiencing these things. It's because you're human. I hope that you found this video somewhat insightful, and for those of you who are curious to know more about Virginia Satir and her model of change, I have linked something in the show notes down below, so of course you can check that out. Leave me a comment to know what you learned from this, if you can relate, what you would like to see more of on my channel. And on that note, have an awesome rest of your week, and I will see you next Monday for another episode of On the Line.